So today I'm in the kitchen and I'm going to be trying a new recipe. I'm going to be making rhubarb barbecue sauce. It's something I've never made before, and I have a bunch of rhubarb left from this spring that I froze and tucked away to use at a later date. And well, that later date is here. So today we're going to try and make some rhubarb barbecue sauce. All right, so let's get into it. So into this really big stock pot, I'm going to add about 8 cups of rhubarb. And this is just plain frozen rhubarb. I've done nothing to it other than wash it, slice it, and throw it in the freezer. I'm going to add a cup of chopped sweet onion, which I already have chopped, ready to go. I'm going to do 1.5 cups of raisins. And I'm just using plain old store-bought raisins for this. There's one. Clump together. Just guesstimate 1.5. And it calls for 1 jalapeno. So I'm just gonna use jalapenos that I canned over the summer, and I'm just gonna guess about 1. Maybe a little more. Okay. 2 cups of brown sugar. Oops. So there's 1. 2. 3/4 cup of honey. I'm not a very exact ingredient measurer. I pretty much use the 1 cup scoop for everything. So I'm just kind of guessing 3/4 cup of honey here in my 1 cup scoop. Okay, that's what that looks like. And next is 3/4 cup apple cider vinegar. Add him in there, and 1/2 teaspoon cinnamon. Half a teaspoon allspice. Half a teaspoon ground ginger. And 1/2 teaspoon salt. Okay, so this is what everything looks like in the pot, and we are going to bring this to a boil and let it simmer for about 30 minutes. So this is what it looks like after it simmered on the stove for about 30 minutes. It cooked down quite a bit. So I'm going to take my immersion blender and blend this all up till it's nice and smooth. And next up, I'm going to ladle this. This is what it ended up looking like after I blended it. Ladle this into jars. These jars are fresh out of the dishwasher, so they're a little hot since this recipe calls for hot pack. So that means that we're putting our hot ingredients into hot jars, and that means that the jars will have a less chance of breaking when we go to put them in the canner. Okay, so I've got my jars packed full. I left about a 1/2 inch at the top to allow for it to expand, so I'm just going to go around and wipe off the rim of all these jars. And I washed out my stock pot that I cooked this in, and I've just got about 2 inches of water in it. So I'm going to be water bathing these. And if you're new to canning, water bathing is a really good way to get started because you don't even have to buy a canner. You can just use a plain old pot. All you're doing when you water bath is just boiling them to seal the lids. So the only thing that you will need to do is you don't want to set your jars directly on the bottom of your pot. So if I'm using a pot like this and not my canner, I'll just take some extra jar lids and put them on the bottom of that pot, and then I'll set a towel over top of them just so the jars aren't directly touching the bottom, and then that towel kind of gives them a little bit of cushion so the jars don't clack together as they boil. So I've got my lids lined up in the bottom, and then before this water gets too boiling hot, I'm gonna add in, this is just a chunk of cheesecloth, and you can use a dish towel, washcloth, whatever, and just kind of lay that in there. And it'll soak up the water, and that'll make a nice spot for your jars to set. So my water in my canner is boiling. It's nice and hot, so it is time to add my jars in. So first I gotta put on my lids. And I ended up with 5 half-pint jars, and then I had a little bit extra, which I'm going to use in a recipe today. So I'm not going to can this. Since it's ready to use and eat, I will just use it that way without canning. Put these on. And then the rings you put on just kind of hand tight. You want them snug, but not so tight that you won't be able to get them off when they're done. I'm going to load these jars in here, and you want the water to cover the top of your jar, so it looks like I need to add maybe just a little bit more water. We'll see when I get all these in here. Nope, by the time I got them all in there, the water level is perfect. So this is what they look like in my pot. I've got them evenly spaced, and the water just covers the top of the lids. So we're gonna let these process and boil for 15 minutes. So my jars have processed under high heat. I have the flame up all the way for 15 minutes. So now I'm gonna turn the flame off and let them rest while still in the canner for 5 minutes. Okay, these have rested in the canner for 5 minutes. So I'm going to take them out and let them cool on the counter. There's what they look like. They look pretty good. I did take a little sample off the pan earlier, and it tastes pretty good so far. So we'll see. I've got some lunch cooking, and I'm gonna go do a few other things. Oop, that jar just sealed. A few other things, and then I'll show you how I'm going to use this barbecue sauce today. Okay, it's time for a taste test. So this is how I'm using the barbecue sauce today. So I made some fresh sourdough bread this morning, and then I cooked a pork loin in the crock pot and topped it off with my barbecue sauce. So let's try it out. It's good. It's really good. So at first it's really sweet, and it has a little bit of like the rhubarb tang, like you can taste the rhubarb, and then the jalapenos come in with a little heat. It's good. It's really good. I would definitely make it again. I wouldn't modify the recipe. It's good. 5 stars.